to another podcast of Criminal Justice Cafe. Today we have Bill Livolsi with us. And I met Bill. It's an interesting story. We have a Monday night support group, a white collar support group that I attend, and Bill also attends. And I met Bill, 5 years ago, right? 5 years ago now?
Yeah, it was five, yes.
Prior to Bill going into prison. And I emailed with him throughout, and he's been home a year now and has been talking out and advocating for others in our situation. So I'll let Bill say a little bit about himself.
Okay. As you mentioned, I'm trying to remember the dates, but it became real for me back in 2013, end of 2013, the beginning of 2014, when I was brought in a federal case on a superseding indictment. The reality was the family had been dealing with it since 2010, when the original defendant in the case, which then I became co-defendant, was arrested on a financial crime. And so it's been a long road. And so here we are, almost 10 years later, a little over 10 years later, if you start from 2010, and it's been quite a journey. But as you mentioned, I'm really grateful to be home. I was fortunate to get out. I was sentenced to 24 months in 2015 through some good lawyering by my lawyer and a compassionate judge. My co-defendant and I were able to get staggered sentences. And so I did not report until she finished her term, which was, she got out at the end of beginning of 2019. And then I reported in March 26th of 2019 and got home April 30th. April 30th of 2020. And here we are.
Yeah. It has been a road. We had a meeting last night with a support group meeting we do on Wednesday nights with just women. Mm-hmm. And a lot of women are coming home early. And I think, as you know, our audience, what I like to do is try and educate the communities on what prison is for people who have committed a financial crime. Mm-hmm. Because I think there's such a big stigma associated to it. But we had one woman who was transitioned into a prison camp and originally got 2 years. After 6 weeks, because of COVID, she got transitioned into a halfway house. And then in 2 days after that, she got transitioned again to home confinement after losing she lost her home, she lost her family, her husband. Mm-hmm. And now she's staying at a friend's house and has to serve her sentence for the next 2 years at a strange environment with very strict, rigid rules. And I think that a lot of people have this misconception of home confinement. We talked about it last night, that it's tough. I mean, you're on probation still, right?
I am on probation. I'm serving. I'm in the middle of serving my supervised release, but also part of my sentence was home confinement of 9 months. So I had home confinement through from last year till the end of December because of my early release from the CARES Act. And then now I'm serving the home confinement that's part of my sentence. And while, I'm not going to complain because I'd rather be home, of course. But there are pretty strict rules. And especially if you are still technically in custody, there are super rigid rules, and you just kind of have to find ways to adapt. But I can see how, especially if you're in a strange environment, that has to be extremely difficult.
Yeah, the rules that she has are very, very rigid. I mean, not saying they shouldn't be. I mean, she's incarcerated in custody at home, but I think that a lot of times communities don't understand that. And it's kind of like the waiting. How long did you wait until you had to self-surrender?
Well, my co-defendant, she served 39 months on a 45-month sentence. So 45 less 85%, or less 15%. So about 39, 40 months. I mean, and that worked out really well because it was an opportunity, for me to prepare, but also work with a family and make sure that the kids were prepared for, one coming home, the other leaving. And it gave me more time to make sure that there was a support system in place for the kids.
Yeah.
And that worked out. But the thing is, I mean, one of the things is that I think people in general have a misconception about, who and what are white collar criminals. I mean, I think they have this perception that, we're serial offenders. I mean, and in most cases, while there are, most cases, that's not the case. Whether it's an incorrect statement, and not saying it was unintentional or anything like that, whether it's on a mortgage application or whatever particular, situation it is. And so people don't realize that in a lot of our cases, it's not we're not serial offenders out there preying on, old people and indigent and, draining their bank accounts. And it's a tough perception to overcome.
It is. I think that most people, I know that the women that I work with have all the same attributes, the characteristics. They're fixers. They are people pleasers. They can't say no. They're caregivers. So when one thing goes wrong, their immediate reaction is to fix it.
Right.
And by any means, fix it. And once that is fixed, they now have to fix what they created. And it's a constant snowball effect where you're constantly trying to fix something that is not fixable in some respect. And I mean, I think that the recidivism rate for white collar financial crimes is something like 93% do not recidivate. And it's crazy that the stigma, like I've said, is a lifetime of having a felony on your record. And I don't think, if I wasn't self-employed, I don't think I'd be able to get employed here. I have 2 master's degrees, going for my doctorate to be self-employed. And I don't think if I was going to look for a job right now, I would be able to get one. I mean, I know that these women coming home because of COVID, the jobs are scarce as it is. They cannot find a job because of their background. And
that's interesting that you bring that up because in a couple of ways. One, the guys that I served time with were all fixers. And I don't mean the guy in the background pulling the string fixers, the pejorative term, but you're right. They're fixers. So they have a situation and, this will solve that problem. And next thing you know, they're going down a rabbit hole. It was, in some cases, it's like watching an episode of Ozark where they're going to, we're going to take this and we're going to do it this way. And then you're screaming at the TV going, no, don't do that. It's not going to work out. And that is a real common thread amongst a lot of the guys that I serve time with. And it certainly resonates with me because I looked at a situation and said, oh, well, if I do this, I can fix this. Okay. Yeah. And the problem is, when you look at it that way, one, you're not thinking clearly anyway. You're traumatized by what's going on. And not that this is an excuse. It's a reason why you're doing it. And it doesn't make it right. But it's an uncontrollable situation anyway. And trying to fix it like that, 9 times out of 10 is going to, if not 10 times out of 10, is going to make it absolutely worse. Yeah. And that's a mistake that a lot of men and women like us make, thinking that they can fix a situation that's unfixable.
Let me ask you a question. Something that came up yesterday. I'm doing my internship for school at the judicial branch in Connecticut.
Yeah, I remember you told me about that. Yeah. It sounds exciting.
It's really been a wonderful program. Yesterday, we talked about restorative justice. And we spoke a lot about, we're doing a piece on the victim services this week, which is difficult for me because I am on the complete opposite end. So I had a wonderful conversation with the victim's advocate for Connecticut. She had a case where there was a drunk driver who really hurt someone. They were drunk and they hit somebody, got into a car accident, was their doing, and the girl lost part of her leg due to the accident. Terrible, terrible situation. And the drunk driver, rightfully so, got quite a bit of time. And I asked her if she had the ability to be brought together with her offender, would it help? And she said, absolutely. And I find that in our situation, because most financial white collar crimes have to do with banks or lenders, or they really aren't against particular people. I don't know if restorative justice would work with a financial crime. I can't sit down with Wells Fargo. I did write them a letter. I wrote them a very lengthy letter after I came home to the president of Wells Fargo. And I started the letter off with, I defrauded your bank and I have to apologize. And it was a 2-page letter. And I thought I'd feel so much better after, but because I couldn't sit down and talk with him and really show him the shame and how sorry I was, there really is that open-ended, I don't know, there is no restorative justice with financial crimes. I'm not sure how you feel about that. How would you?
I think it will depend on who the victims are. Without going into a lot of detail, but in our case, in my case, there are members of my family who were directly impacted by, and so there have been opportunities, and hopefully there'll be continuing opportunities to make those kind of amends. Yeah. And now, to the extent, and when I say amends, I can't fix what happened. All I can do is pay my restitution and do the things that I've been asked to do by the court. I haven't had the conversation with them if it made it any better for them, because I don't know that, that financial loss that financial loss will never go away.
Yeah. And I've been thinking about it recently, of possibly having some financial victims on the podcast to get both sides to see. I know when I got sentenced, when I got indicted and I pled guilty and I got sentenced, Wells Fargo didn't show up. So there was no one. And when I got sentenced, the judge said to me, "You didn't say you're sorry." And I thought to myself, but they're not here. I am sorry. I'm very sorry. I made such a poor choice. It was the darkest moment in my life. I made the worst choice in my life, overstated my income on this application. And at the time, I mean, I have since made them whole financially, but at the time it was a mortgage crisis. And I'm sure, people at Wells Fargo got fired because of it. I'm sure possibly the processor,
right. Yeah.
the underwriter.
Not particularly for yours, but I mean, if you recall what was going on, they would give mortgages to ham sandwiches back then. Yeah. So, I mean,
and I was one.
No, you're not a ham sandwich.
I should not have gotten a mortgage. Hence, I overstated my income on the mortgage.
But that's an interesting thought, though, because I have thought about writing to the main victim of our case. I haven't done it. I have thought about it. And maybe that's something, maybe that's a path that I will go down at some point. I don't know if it will help them at all.
I know it will probably help you.
Yeah, but I don't want to. Look, I think given the situation, and it's not about me, I mean, if anything, it's about the impact to them. It's the impact to the family. It's the impact to my family. So I am trying not to think about it in those terms.
And I think that's the same thing too, is a lot of people don't understand out in communities when they know you've been to prison or indicted for a financial crime, they don't understand the shame and the guilt and the isolation. And I've said this several times, a few times on my podcasts. I barricaded my house. I isolated myself for a year. I wouldn't leave the house. I was humiliated. And what I did to my family was horrific. I mean, they were affected so badly by my poor choice that the only thing I can do is consistently prove myself. And that's what I feel like I have to keep doing, is prove myself that I'm sorry. And I mean, we've talked about it. I still hold a lot of guilt, not so much shame. I'm learning that people aren't perfect.
Right.
And I am learning that so many people, I think that the numbers are something like 6 out of 10 people are committing a felony every day and don't know it.
Yeah, I've heard similar. I mean, I've heard similar numbers. I understand the hiding part very well, because when I knew I was indicted, I was pretty, once I was indicted, at the time I was fairly active in a community group. And, when I found out about it, and I happened to be, I was doing some things for that. And as soon as I knew about it, I had to go into the next meeting and I had to resign, because I didn't want the embarrassment of me being associated, because I knew it would come out in the news at some point. And so I resigned my position, and because I didn't want my problems to impact this group, and the people that I worked with in this group, I pulled them aside individually and I told them what was going on. But this was a town of 5,000 people. It was pretty tiny, and that's kind of how it started. And I started being a hermit. I would freak out anytime somebody came into the driveway. I mean, I lived out in the country, so if somebody came into the driveway, I'd be at the window going, "Oh my God, what's happening? What shoe's dropping now?"
Yeah.
Do
you still feel that way after all this time? If someone knocks at the door, comes down
yes, I do. I don't like it. I don't like people knocking at my door.
No, me neither.
It kind of freaks me out. And so often I will, if I can kind of peek around, I don't have a door cam, so I don't know who's there. So if I'm not expecting anybody, I just kind of pretend I'm not home. And if it's really important, but I have to check because my PO comes around frequently. So
Yeah.
I got to be home for my people.
Yeah, you don't answer that call. That knock.
I'm gonna have to answer that one. And it was, but I mean, we're somewhat looked at, and this is true with anybody who has a crime in the background. We're kind of looked at throwaway people. Yeah. And I mean, I get it. Everybody's got their own issues. I mean, this last year has been horrendous for everybody. So, as you mentioned earlier about people finding work or whatever, I get it. We're on the low end of the totem pole. But we're not disposable people. I mean, and I get mixed feelings too, is that because when we're starting to speak out about things like as you do, as Jeff does, and other people, that we mutually know, I get the sense sometimes that people think that maybe we're celebrating something, and we're not celebrating the fact that we did what we did. We're celebrating the fact that we're trying to overcome it, and to be, to be a better, mother, father, husband, wife, member of the community. And I think that's something that, I think for the foreseeable future, that's something that we're going to always have to be proving ourselves. And if that's, if it is the case, then it is, I don't know that there's a lot we can do about it.
Yeah. It's funny. Yesterday, I work with a woman who, the same woman who is on home confinement. And I don't know if anybody knows, when you leave prison and you go into the halfway house, you sign a piece of paper. I don't know if you did, Bill, but I know I did. Signed a piece of paper of what your restrictions are, and you recognize one of those restrictions in Connecticut in the halfway houses are you cannot eat anything with poppy seeds in it. Because if you are tested, it will give a false positive reading in a urine that you have either, I think it's opiates, right?
Yeah, opiates. Yes.
Well, this woman went to Dunkin' Donuts and they released this wonderful avocado toast. So she got the avocado toast. She's eating it and she looked down and there was these little black seeds in it.
Oh, no.
And she texted me a picture and she said, "Oh my God, I just ate poppy seeds." So I said to her, it's okay. You just ate half of it. And immediately she called the halfway house and sent them a picture. And she said, "I want to be transparent and honest. I ate these. I didn't know they were in this avocado toast." And last night on the phone call, her caseworker said to her, "Well, we have to do your incident report." So she said, "What do you mean an incident report?" She said, "Well, we have to write up an incident report. You ate poppy seeds and you told me about it. So I have to give you what we call a shot." When you do something wrong, they write an incident report, and that incident report goes to the Bureau of Prisons, and in prison it's called a shot, that you're given a ticket, a shot. And she called me up. She was very upset. And I said to her, "Look, think about what you did. You didn't try and fix it. You automatically did the right thing. You sent a picture, you owned up to it, and you didn't say, 'Oh my God, how can I get this out of my system?' and drink vinegar and water and flush it out." She did the right thing. And what she didn't realize was how far she had come. And I've known her for 3 years, where her crime was the fact that she fixed everything. And she was just constantly in this snowball effect, taking out loans, fixing. She finally broke that and didn't try and fix it. And I was so proud of her. And I spoke to some other people about it that have not been justice impacted. They had no idea what I was talking about. None.
No.
And they were like, "Well, why didn't she just, and I said, "No, that's not the point. The point is she could have very easily got whatever was in her system out of her system, but she didn't do that. She did the right thing and owned up to it." And I think most financial most white collar crime offenders go out of their way to make sure they do the right thing. I have to check myself often.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really proud of her. And I think the community needs to know that it's not that you're right. We're not celebrating. We are trying to evolve. We're trying to take these characteristics and rethink how we do things. And that's hard in any mental health arena. I mean, trauma, anything that you go through, you need to cognitively say to yourself, how do I change my behavior? And
and you don't, and unfortunately, if you've, for anybody who served time in prison, that's not easy to do when it's doable. Don't get me wrong. And a lot of people do, but it's not naturally, especially if you serve time in prison, it's not naturally set up to look at the behaviors. There are classes and there's certain, CBT type, CBT based, classes, which is most of what they do. Mm-hmm. But if you're not taking them, and if you're not using that time, just being in prison, it's not necessarily going to help you with those things. You have to want to do it.
Yeah. You have to sign up. I know you did. You did everything because I was emailing.
I did as much as I could, just simply because, one, I didn't want to be bored, and it made the time pass faster. And the truth is, it there was, if you apply yourself, you can get things out of it. It's just, some things you'll get more out of than not. It just depends. I mean, and that's what I find interesting too, with the community that we have. And that's kind of a strange word, community, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I look at, some of the people we know and, including you and Jeff and others, and I look at the things that y'all have accomplished and I'm like, damn, I mean, it's really impressive to the extent that I think of it and go, well, I wonder if this, if we didn't travel down the road we were on, probably wouldn't be doing the things we're doing now. I mean,
absolutely. I agree.
And we'd still be saving or living the same lifestyle. And, we'd probably be insanely unhappy.
Yeah. It is true. I know that my experience and my journey, albeit that I've gone through a lot of judgment and trauma, was the best thing that ever happened to me. I often wonder where I would be, like you said, if I definitely would not be in school again. I would not be doing these podcasts. I would not be trying to reach out to help both victims and offenders. I wouldn't be doing that. I'd still be working in the same field, doing the same thing. And I was miserable. Like I said, I was a ham sandwich. I had no feeling. The everyday grind. It was me going to work every day, doing that everyday grind and never taking a moment to breathe.
Mm-hmm. Well, have you looked back? Like I know I've done it a couple of times and I've come to the same conclusion, but did you ever look back and say, what was the point where your priorities got screwed up? You know what I mean? I know where mine was, and I see it, and I'll share that in a minute. But I was just curious if you've ever thought of that, because I know I have, and I go, boy, if I had just not made these couple of lifestyle choices, let's say, or decisions, things might have turned out differently.
I know the exact moment. In fact, I brought the scenario, and I'll share that. I brought it to an attorney who said to me, don't do it. Mm-hmm. I took on a partner in my business to grow my business who was an attorney. And I was told, don't, why do you want to give part of your business to someone else? You got a great thing going. Why do you want to grow it? I wanted the one-stop shop. I had a title company and I wanted an attorney, a loan officer, everybody in one space where someone just needed to come to. And I didn't need to grow. And it was a grandiose thing on my part. It was quite narcissistic. I had my whole family working for me and I felt I needed to prove myself to my father that I can make it better. And it didn't need to be better.
It was good enough as it was better already.
It was better already. And no one needed to make a lot of money. And I mean, we did, in that business, you just don't. And I have found coming home, I have a title search company that I have shrank down to minimal. And my daughter's taking it over and we're doing a phenomenal business because bigger is not better.
See, that's interesting because in my case, it was somewhat similar. And I started, and I remember I was living in Las Vegas at the time. And I remember money started going to my head. And what I mean is it skewed my priorities. And I was traveling a lot. And the job, don't get me wrong, I loved the job. I was working for an advertising agency in New York City. And that was going good. I mean, it was going really good. But, I had accumulated some money. I'm like, well, I'm going to need to, I really, I was making plenty of money. I didn't have a problem. I could pay my bills and I could put money away, but I needed more. And that need for more started me down a path of, well, then obviously more is better.
Yeah.
And I started neglecting my family and my kids.
Yeah.
And I used all sorts of different ways to justify it. And it just started snowballing and snowballing. It didn't happen overnight. It happened over months, and then it happened over years. And, I thought I was the most important thing ever. Yeah. Until I found out I wasn't.
That was me. Mine wasn't even about money. Mine was about being the best. And having my father say to me, I'm proud of you. And I did the same thing. And the funny thing is I thought I was the best. I thought I can juggle it all. But now I look back, I never missed one of my kids' functions, but I always had a laptop with me. I was always working at their function with a laptop. I was glued to this laptop. I had it with me 24/7. So I wasn't really present. I was physically there, but I wasn't present because I was always trying to build something, do better. And I guess in some way, I still do that, but I do it with a different sense of importance. The importance to me, the level of importance has changed. My family is number one. I will never put them in the back burner again. And the things I've acquired, I don't care about. I care about experiences now. Taking my parents away for their 60th anniversary for just 2 days, to me was the most, they're 82. It was the best weekend I've had in probably 10 years with them. Or visiting my daughter for a weekend in Maine just to pop in. Those experiences, I'm present now. I'm emotionally present where I wasn't before.
Well, and do you think that, I started picking that up, that gratitude for things literally when I was in prison, because there is nothing to make you figure out all the things you don't need when you have to live out of a little small locker. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, where you have all your clothes, your socks, everything you need. And, so you're grateful when you get, oh, they had a new pack of crackers at the commissary or, oh, somebody gave me some gum. I'm not supposed to have it, so nothing will give you a sense of gratitude like that kind of situation where you become thankful for all the little extra things that people wouldn't give a moment's thought about on a day-to-day life.
Yeah. And that's what we talked about Monday night. We had our 250th meeting Monday night on our support group, and we spoke about gratitude. And I have a lot of friends that say, why do you do that? You don't need to go to that support group. They don't understand that those people have become family to me.
Absolutely.
Those people, they helped me understand. They helped me get through the horrible parts of prison, the physical horrible parts of prison. I mean, having to self-surrender that first day, being scared. But then you realize, wow, who really loves you? My kids and my husband never missed a weekend visitation. And we live close to Danbury. So we're an hour away. I was very fortunate. And the people that I thought would be there for me absolutely just bailed. And it gave me a complete sense of gratitude of and you're right. I had a pair of Crocs in Danbury. Woman gave me, and I wore those Crocs. Today, I love Crocs today because of them.
Did you bring them home with you?
I did. I had two pair. I left one for another woman. I brought another pair home because I thought I didn't even know anything about Crocs. So I'm like, oh, this is a prison shoe. It's not a thing that you can get in the outside. They come with all these colors.
Oh, and it's funny. I brought some stuff home from prison too, like my little book light. Okay, and I know. I remember the day I got picked up to come home. And there was a bunch of us that got out. There was about 35 of us that got out that day. And
wow.
Yeah. It started out as 50. They put us 50 of us in. There was about 50 of us that were put into quarantine. And then, if you remember back this time last year, they were messing around with the qualifications, not messing around, but they were the eligibility requirements.
Yeah, the eligibility.
About 15 guys got pulled out, which was heartbreaking to see them get pulled out and put back into regular population. But a lot of us went down the road to the Quick Trip or whatever it was, and we went into the restroom in there to get changed into our clothes. I saw guys just dumping their stuff into the trash. I'm like, no, I think I'll take this home. But I brought home my little book light and just this kind of reminders of what you don't need or how much, little things you need.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because, you go into prison and you change. They put your clothes in a box and they send them home to you. But they send them home. And so I said to my husband, just bring those. I'll change into those. And not realizing, holy crap, I gained 20 pounds.
Yeah.
The food there's all carbs. I gained 20 pounds. I couldn't get my jeans on. I was devastated. I had to wear my gray sweats. So I'm thinking, you know what? It doesn't matter because it's just things. It's just, I didn't care about them anymore. It's, it was just a crazy thing that I know you lost a ton of weight, right?
Yeah, I lost about somewhere between 30, 40 pounds.
I find that's the difference between the men and the women. Most of the men lose weight where the women, they have cheese and crackers constantly. And all they do is have these little get-togethers to talk out feelings eating cheese and crackers because that's what's on commissary. And most of them go in.
I know. Well, it's funny because, we if you're not getting out and doing things when you're there, I mean, it's going to make it very difficult. Now, I could imagine that if, we were we were kind of on lockdown for a while leading up to when we go, but 6 months of that, yeah, you could definitely pack on some weight.
Yeah.
But we're fortunate. I mean, it was fortunate that didn't happen. But
yeah,
I mean, I look at all the things that have kind of transpired, and I mean, all in all, I'm happy that it's turned out the way it has. I mean, if somebody said to me, "Would you change anything?" If I could have avoided those early mistakes, would I? Yeah. I mean, I'd be stupid to say I wouldn't. I would like to think, oh, I wouldn't change a thing, but I don't think that's reality. I think we would if we had to.
Yeah.
But what I get, really inspiration from is the people in the group that are, I look at all the great things everybody's doing, and I look at who they're helping. And I'm just, it gives me something that I aspire to at this point.
Yeah, I feel I feel like for me, I talk to a lot of women that need to get involved in trying to change policies and policy change. And I really feel that in the criminal justice system, there really isn't going to be a lot of change no matter how hard you work. So for me, I think helping with the emotional piece to it, with both women and men and victims as well, I think that that's the only change I can make. And I try and give back as much as I can, because that's what my doctor is in social work. So I look at things very differently, and being through the system, I look at things even 10 times more different. I mean, there's no common sense when it comes to sentencing. There's no common sense when it comes to where people are going to prison. They say they want you close to your home. However, it's decided by a designation center. Mm-hmm. Most of the time they try and do the best, but I know women that have got sent to Texas that live in Connecticut.
Right.
There's no common sense.
Something you brought up, I don't know if it was one of our group meetings or whatever, but I think that, all these, I know people talk about big changes. And I really think progress, and this is not my idea, this is something I heard, and I think you said it, is that I think progress comes from the small steps. Okay. I know people say, well, set a big goal, you're likely to achieve it. Well, that's true maybe in your own personal life, but when you're dealing with governmental agencies and politicians and things like that, I think it's the small changes over time that are going to make things better.
I agree. And that is why I speak at universities. People want me to go up to Washington and speak, but for me, if I speak at universities, those kids are going to be our next senators, congressmen. That's where the change is going to come, educating the youth who are in, you go to Yale, you go to Harvard, you go to the larger Ivy League schools, and talking to those kids who are in the political sciences and want to make a change in politics. That's where I think the education has to come in, the real life education, not just the textbook education. So that's what I try and do. Yeah.
Well, and part of the problem that we have now too is that, everything is on social media and all this, and there's this general kind of outrage machine, and that doesn't really help the people that we're trying to help.
Yeah.
The people that you're trying to help. I mean, if anything, it makes it worse. Okay. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think that small incremental changes, you had this idea, was that, what about, after X period of time, that you're able to, if you've not recommitted, you've done what you needed to do, that you can get your record expunged. Or it's kind of like voting rights. I mean, here in Oklahoma, I can't register to vote, and I can't vote until, as far as I know, is until I'm off my supervised release.
Okay. In Connecticut, I voted immediately.
Right. See, I can't. I can't. So that I'm looking forward to that. I can't wait. I mean, I never will take voting for granted ever again. I haven't been able to vote in since 2013. But changes like that would make a big difference.
Yeah. And that's very important to me, that change. And that's something that I aspire to continue to work on. I had a friend's son-in-law call me about 2 weeks ago. And he called me because he knew I'd understand. He had a state charge when he was in college. And it was a drug charge that he had. And it's been 10 years. And he called me up and he said, today's 10 years. And I didn't know at first what that meant. And he said, now when someone does a background check on me, it doesn't come up. After 10 years, a state check doesn't come up. And I said, oh my God. And I've celebrated with him how amazing
that's wonderful.
Right? Because we will never get that chance currently. In the current administration, currently the way it is, we will never get that chance to say, if a federal check is done, it won't come up because I'll be 80 and it still comes up. Mm-hmm. And the only one that can change that is the president. We can't go for a pardon. The governor can't help me. Only the president of the United States can do a pardon. And most of the time they do clemencies, which is very different, or commutation. I think people mistake a clemency and a commutation for a pardon.
No, it's not.
Yeah, clemency and anyone who's watching, a clemency and a commutation just changes your sentencing to you either get out of prison early or they'll cut your sentence in half or cut it down, but it doesn't take away the felony from your record. Right. And that, to me, there should be something, and I would think it would help with recidivism rate in any felony for a federal crime, if you have something to work towards that, in 10 years, if my record is clean without even a driving violation, I will no longer be a felon. I think that would make all the difference in the world to people coming home.
Absolutely.
To mental health even. Right. It's depressing to me thinking about the fact that no matter how old I am, I will be always a felon for life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And unfortunately, I don't, with the way things are, unfortunately our politics has turned into culture wars about everything. So I don't see that, I don't see that changing much anytime soon, but, but there are probably areas that, it could be accomplished in, and hopefully small changes over time will add up. But, that's just things that, ordinary people aren't going to work for those things. I think it's going to be people like us and people who are interested in it.
And that's why I think it's important to educate communities and educate people who are not involved in the system, because so many people, and he said to me, when will your 10 years be? And I said, oh, no, it's not like that for federal. No 10 years. And he didn't understand. And I felt, wow. And I haven't heard anybody really speak about that in our community or even arena. I've not heard politicians. I've never heard politicians fight for that. They fight for different sentencing. They fight for better conditions. They fight for, but they don't fight for that lifelong felony to go away.
Right. And the things you mentioned are all worthy goals. But you're right. I think that's something that needs to be, advocated for, just like they advocate for restoration of voting rights. I think that's really important. I'm not a gun owner, And I'm not really interested in being it, but that's another, it's gone for life. Now,
Yeah.
I served time with some guys who were avid hunters. Okay. And avid gun owners. Now, granted, some of them used them in their crime, but, but at some level, if you don't have that, you should be able to earn back some of your rights.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's something that, maybe, new people that come into the group and that'll find that as their calling. I mean, because I was reminded of that, as you pointed out, that I'll always be a felon, as I put a job in, an application in with, they have an Amazon distribution center. So I put in an application there, and I'll be, I had to do some background check things with them, and I just got the background check report, and all the things I said would show up showed up. But it's it's a reminder that it ain't going anywhere.
Yeah, it's definitely not going anywhere.
No, but
and one blemish, I think, on your record. I mean, I'm 54, and now it's been, my crime was in 2008 when it happened. It's still to this day, I've never even had a speeding ticket, never had a parking ticket, a speeding ticket. And I can't even say I have, I'm proud. I have no record because I made such a detrimental, poor choice that affected the outcome of the rest of my life.
Yeah. Well, I still forget, like when I'm driving and things, if I see a police officer or something coming down the road with the lights on, I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? Did I go through a light? Did I speed? I freak out. But, it goes back to the whole knocking on the door thing. I don't like answering doors either. But, I guess that's just,
it's the trauma.
It's the PTSD.
It's true. And people have said to me, oh, please, you did the crime. I hate hearing you did the crime, do the time kind of thing. Yeah. You know what? I committed a crime. I did my time.
Right.
And I still, when you're going through that system, trauma is created just like it is created you create it for the victim, which gives you even more trauma that you've created this trauma for a victim. And then you've created it. You've gone through it. So you're traumatized by the system that is so, I don't want to say corrupt, because there's so often it's not, but then it's not equal. So some prisons are worse than other prisons. And I was very fortunate to be in Danbury. I had wonderful COs. I had wonderful case managers. I hear horror stories compared to what I went through. So I'm also blessed there and grateful. I could have been in a hardcore real jail where there was bars. I didn't have that.
No. And the same way. I mean, El Reno was, I was fortunate. It was 2 hours from the house, so it made it easy for the family to visit. I wouldn't say the COs were wonderful or the case managers. I mean, my case manager was actually okay. But I mean, again, it's a lot of things. Could have been a lot worse. I was able to get a job. I was able to make the best out of the situation. And I mean, that's really all you can do. And I don't like that whole don't do the crime if you can't do the time thing, because it's just, I really,
because let me tell you, the halfway house for me is where I have so much trauma from. It was horrible for me. I had to go to the Hartford halfway house. Is not a place for really anybody. I don't care what crime you've committed. It's really not. There's drugs going in and out of there left and right. It's state and federal women. And I'd be sitting in my room. Federal had the bottom floor, and I'd be looking out the window, and there'd be a basket being pulled up with drugs in the basket. And there was 2 women that got pregnant while they were in the halfway. It was terrible.
Oh my God, that's horrible.
Yeah, they needed to make a lot of changes, and I know that they are starting to make those changes, because the staff they treated the inmates at the halfway house absolutely horrible. They called them clients. It was a very bad experience. And then when I got home, I was so grateful. But then I always have to say it. And it's funny because Our producer once said to me, "You sure you want to say that?" But I will. I have to shout out every single
I know. Go ahead. I'm waiting
I shout
for
out
it.
to my neighbor, Robin Hunt, who is a retired Branford police officer. She was horrible to me and still is to this day. I've never had a conversation with her, but she's very judgmental. Made sure the whole neighborhood knew I was felon and tells the neighborhood that I am not trustworthy and they should not speak to me. And I still live with that every day. And it's 15 years later. And
when you see her, when she drives by, you just wave and you can tell her I said hello too.
I do. I sent her a Christmas card. I'm all about forgiveness.
I love it.
So I did send her a Christmas card.
I know. And, but you know what? I mean, it's funny. We've developed some pretty thick skin.
Yeah.
And, but I think that has also come from the change of priorities.
Yeah. That's what I don't understand. I have gotten a thick skin, but this one situation destroys me. It really bothers me. I have new neighbors next door, and now they have this whole perception of me that is not accurate at all. And it shouldn't bother me. I should just fluff it off. Hey, but that's the only situation now for some reason. It bothers me so much that I bring it up every podcast. So, and
I'm sorry. I just love the fact that you do it. I do. Oh my God. I just love it.
I have to.
But
and hopefully somebody will see how much that actually I laugh about it, but how much it hurts underneath is why.
Well, that's why that's why we do it, Avi, or that's why you do it. I mean, and I know that. And I think anybody who's been in your situation or our situation, I mean, they get it. Most people won't get it, but
they just won't.
We love you and we get it. Believe me.
Yeah, I know, and that's what I want my viewers to know too. It's the hurt underneath that we don't show, and I try not to. I'm really trying hard not to show a lot of vulnerabilities, but I have to. I mean, in doing a podcast, which, by the way, I will bring up to all of our listeners and to Bill, because I don't think you know, or our producer, Ryan, who doesn't know, I am searching now for a real criminal justice cafe facility where we can open it up and put a stage, like a TED Talk, for anyone in the criminal justice community to stand and tell their story, whether it be a correctional officer, someone in law enforcement, an inmate, a prior inmate, whoever.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I'm looking for facilities outside Supreme Court, around Supreme Court, that we can go to and just have a real interaction. It's so hard. We do these podcasts because of COVID, but it's the easiest way to get our message out there. But I think we're lacking it. I can't touch you. I can't say, Bill, you're lacking in that personal realness. Mm-hmm. You could see by our faces, you can hear by our conversation. I've been called, you get a lot of people that think the podcasts there's an agenda. I have no agenda except to educate and help the community. And you can't feel that, I don't think, unless you're in person.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, because there's a couple of, you doing the podcast, Jeff, and there's a few others that I think really, I feel it because I relate to it.
Yeah.
But I think people, if they, especially in this format, especially if you just listen to it, like I don't watch the podcasts, I listen to them. Yeah. Because I don't like my eyes to get distracted or whatever. And if you really listen, I mean, you can definitely, you can feel it if you let yourself open to it. I believe that. I believe that you can, and I believe that most people can if they give themselves a chance and listen to the words that people are speaking. But I think that's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, so that's what we're working on now. I'm excited about it. I'm very excited.
Absolutely.
About it.
Well, and it should be good for real estate. Well, wait a minute. I guess real estate prices, not home wise, but I would imagine the cost to lease a place would probably be lower, considering a lot of the businesses that might have closed because of COVID, or the vacancies that didn't get filled. So
yeah, there's a lot of coffee shop vacancies.
Yeah. Oh man, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, when I get off home confinement, I'll be traveling back east.
And I won't have a rigorous selective process like TED Talk does. You have to apply to do a TED Talk, to actually be on a TED Talk stage. You apply, and sometimes you don't hear back. And we will have an open forum.
There you go. So. Oh, I like that idea. I do. And we could have your when you get it set up, you can have your reunions there.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
That'd be very nice.
It'll be great. And hopefully, to me, I'm trying to bring the community, as well as law enforcement, as well as victims and offenders, together for restorative justice. And I really believe in restorative justice. And to me, that's something, it gives people a commonality. Mm-hmm. Everyone drinks coffee. You sit, have a cup of tea, drink coffee, have a biscotti maybe, mm-hmm. And listen to someone's true feelings and story. And I think that is something that would do pretty well and bring people together.
Well, and you could get a couple of, that'd be great, because you could get a couple of some people that are quasi famous to come in and help open it up and get the draw. Oh, I love that idea.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have our new logo, which I hope everybody has seen. I don't know if you've seen it.
I did. It's lovely.
Mike did our logo. He's amazing. And I'm very happy with that. So we're kind of moving along here. And really, out there, anybody who wants to come on and talk about their feelings, whether their feelings are not for us, I'm open to having any conversation on here. I think it's important to have both sides on, and we'll go forward with that.
Yeah, and again, I think it's important for regular people to understand. We're not. I'm not looking for sympathy. You're not looking for sympathy. I don't know anybody who's looking for sympathy. It's just that, like everything, we're all human beings. Okay, and I'm sure you saw things at Danbury. I know I saw things at Ovino that I don't think I'll ever forget. The guy committed suicide when I was there. Okay.
Yeah.
And you see how Black and brown people are treated in prison. Okay. You think white people get treated poorly? Try being, Black, Mexican, Hispanic, whatever. It's just, it's not about sympathy. It's about, trying to get people's eyes open to a segment of society that nobody wants to look at.
Yeah, especially the mental health field, because prisons are used. I saw so many women that had such mental health problems that should not have been, and prison was making them worse. I had one woman who would go outside and she would swear there were helicopters flying around. And the thing is, there was, it was comical at times, but then if you really watch, and I'm a people watcher, I watched her and my heart broke for her. And I was one of the only people one of the other women that went up to her, and I befriended her. And she's unbelievably smart. She had her doctorate in science behavior, but her mental health was so bad that she started seeing things. She had a 10-year sentence and for a conspiracy charge, which many people don't realize that conspiracy is actually worse than committing the crime.
Yeah, it's easier for them to prove because they really don't have to prove anything.
Yeah, there's nothing to prove. Yeah, and if you get a conspiracy charge, you're going longer than if you actually committed the crime. So this woman had a conspiracy charge, and wow, my heart broke for her because she had such mental health problems, and a prison is not a mental health facility.
No.
It's just not.
No.
And it wasn't helping her at all. Yeah. So
One of the guys that got out when I did, he was there on a white collar, and he had received a 14-year sentence. And at first, I lived with him him and two other guys when I first got in there. I lived with them about 9 months. And it took me about a month to figure out that, I mean, and he's a really nice guy. Okay. He's about my age, but you see how people become so institutionalized.
Yeah.
And you could tell by the habits. And a lot of these habits, like he would sleep with his pants on. Okay. Yeah. Well, he slept with his pants on because somebody, at some other point, he happened to be, he got assaulted at one point, and, he couldn't, he was sleeping in something and he couldn't really defend himself. So he always kept himself
ready.
He's ready. Exactly. That was the word. And so you're right. They're not mental health places. And if anything, it makes it worse. And then you come out of there traumatized. A lot of people do. I mean, and
yeah,
we're some of the fortunate ones, but that's stuff that what you're doing and what Jeff does and others, it calls attention to that. And I think it's, I think it's needed. It's absolutely needed. It
definitely is needed. Well, Bill, I love talking to you. I do. I love having conversations with you because you're you take such accountability, and you aren't looking for sympathy, and you do want to give back. And I just love that. So
thank you. I have great role models. Okay. I'm not trying to blow, smoke in your ear or anything, but I mean, I remember the times we talked. And people should know we've never physically met.
Yeah,
but we've been friends for 5 years, and the way that you were able to help me understand prison and what it was like, and all those things. And I mean, it's just a gift that I can never repay. So I just,
you're sweet.
You are one of my heroes, believe me.
Well, we're going to talk transparencies. This is our second podcast one we did. And this is why I'm a week behind on podcasts.
Oh, my goodness.
We did a phenomenal hour, and I don't know if Ryan wasn't available.
Yeah, he wasn't available.
He wasn't on. And I said, I can do this. And we thought we recorded the entire hour, and I was so excited, and I never hit the record button. So...
Oh, listen,
here. So this is take two.
It gave us an excuse to do it. It gave us an excuse to do it again.
It did. And we have a professional that is in the background making sure that we are being recorded.
Oh, and while we're doing this, my son comes in from school, and I usually I love to cook. So he comes in from school, and I told him, I said, I'm going to be doing a podcast. And I said, I can't do my thing. Like, I can't make you lunch or whatever. I'm like an Italian grandmother. Oh, let me cook you something. So he's standing right here going like this. I'm like, and I'm trying to discreetly go, get the hell, But anyway, it made it memorable, but I'm glad we got I'm glad we got a chance to do it again.
I am too. Thank you. And we'll have to do take 3 again.
Okay.
But a real problem. Take 3 would have you on again.
All right. Jackie, I love you.
You too. Take care. Have a wonderful Easter.
And you too. I bought a ham yesterday, so we'll see what else I'm going to do.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Oh, wait, before I leave, before Ryan shuts us off, I want to say follow us, because I was told that I never give us our contact information. And I don't, because I'm so into the conversation. So please follow us on YouTube. Instagram is at Criminal Justice Cafe. Facebook is at Criminal Justice Cafe. Twitter is at C Justice Cafe. And reach out if you have any questions, you want to talk to Bill or I, please, evolutionreentry@gmail.com. And we'll see you next week.